This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge. And if you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website.
I recently received an email from Jean in California, and she was thinking about getting a new camera lens, and so she was asking for a little bit more info about that. So I thought, hey, let's do a podcast on it. So thanks, Jean. You were the inspiration behind this episode. So let's start with some basics. A lens works with your camera body to help create images. Now, the lens itself is made of several elements, and those elements inside that case are usually glass, and the job of the lens is to direct the path of light rays coming in and recreate that image as accurately as possible onto your digital sensor, with the goal being to minimize distortion like image blurring, reduced contrast, and color confusion. Now, each lens is assigned its own aperture, and what that means is that's controlling the amount of light that passes through the lens and gets to the image sensor. So you may have a lens that is an f4, you may have an f8, you may have an f2.5, and those are the labels that tell you how much light is getting through that lens. And that aperture number, or that f-stop number, is also what tells you whether the lens is a fast lens or not. Lenses are also referred to as glass. So you may hear people saying, oh, what kind of glass are you using? And what they're referring to is the lens. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is focal length, and lenses have focal lengths, and that's basically what determines the angle of the view, and it has a really significant impact on how easy it will be to achieve a sharp handheld photograph. It will also determine how much the subject will be magnified. Now, when you're looking at the focal length, that is the distance between the lens surface and your image sensor. Now, the larger the distance, the stronger the magnification factor of the lens will be, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. A lens's focal length is also measured in millimeters. So when you look at a lens, it may say 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter or 300 millimeter. That number is what the lens's focal length is. So let's start talking about some specific lenses, and we'll start with the wide-angle lens. This is a lens that has a small focal length. So if you look at the lens, from the front of the lens to the sensor is a short distance. Now, because of that, you want to use this kind of lens to get this wider field of view. The camera can capture more of the scene. So if you look at these two photos here, the one of the Golden Gate and the one of Mograten Cemetery, you can see I wanted to get a lot of scenery, so that's why I went with a wide-angle lens. Now, with a telephoto lens, that has a longer focal length, and you'll notice that a lot of telephoto lenses are really long, so the distance between the lens case and the sensor is a bigger distance. Now, because of that, you're going to get a more narrow field of view. You're going to want to capture less of the scene in front of you, and the object is actually going to appear magnified in relation to their environment. Now, in both of these photos, the giraffe and these little wind sculptures, I was hundreds of feet below them. So my telephoto lens was really handy because I could really zoom in and capture them and have them fill the frame, and I wouldn't be able to do that with a wide-angle lens. One of the things to keep in mind with telephoto lenses is that they do require a shorter exposure time. And the reason for that is you want to minimize the blurring that's caused by shaky hands. And think of it like this: if you were holding a laser pointer and you were holding it really steady, if you were holding it against an object nearby you, it would seem pretty stable. But as soon as you pointed it to an object further away from you, that little dot would start to jump up and down, and that's what happens with telephoto lenses. So that's why you need that shorter exposure time. So let's talk a little bit about slow lenses versus fast lenses. If you're looking at a slow lens, it would have the maximum f-stop of 5 or higher. And these lenses are less expensive. Many times you're going to see them at an f-stop of about 8. Whereas a fast lens has an f-stop of less than 4. And it lets in more light at a faster shutter speed. It's easier to shoot in low light without a tripod or a flash. You can usually shoot with a lower ISO. You get less of the camera shake. So if you're in low light or you want action shots or things like that, you may want to look at a fast lens. Now the deal with fast lenses though is they tend to be a little bit more expensive, and the reason they are is because the elements or the glass in them is at a superior quality, so you're going to pay more for that. So remember, the higher the f-stop number, that's going to mean the slower the lens. Now, there's some other things though to consider before you start looking at lenses. One of the things that I did when I started to purchase lenses for my camera is I asked myself, what do I want to photograph? Because it really makes a big difference to ask yourself that question. Are you going to be into landscapes, insects, portraits, birds, movement, wildlife, flowers, sports? It really matters what you want to photograph, because that's going to help you decide what kind of lens that you want to get. I sort of have this philosophy of I don't want to have a piece of gear if I'm actually not going to be using it. I don't just want it to collect it. I want to be able to use it. So for me, I did want to have a higher quality lens. So because I knew I would be spending a little bit more money, I decided to then make sure that I studied what it was I wanted to photograph with that lens. I didn't just put it in my bag and think, oh, well, that's just something I can use someday. I made sure to make a point of using that lens frequently, almost to study it, if you will. So let's talk about some of the different types of lenses. Now there are things like the extreme wide angle that has a focal length of less than 21 millimeters, and that's used for shooting building and architecture, that kind of a thing. Now if you want to go just with a basic wide angle, that's got a focal length of 21 to 35 millimeters. That's great for landscapes. Now the 35 to 70 millimeter, that may be the lens that came with your camera when you purchased it. That's just a normal, everyday, average kind of lens, great for shooting just regular stuff, street views, things like that. Then we start to get into the telephotos. Now a medium telephoto is a 70 to 135 millimeter lens. It's actually great for shooting portraits. And then the other telephoto lenses, these are anything from about 135 millimeters up. 300 millimeters, you're starting to look at getting some real close shots with images that are far away. Great for sports, wildlife. If you want to photograph birds, you may want to even look at a 600 millimeter lens. So really consider asking yourself, what do you want to study first? You don't want to say everything, because then you're not really giving yourself the opportunity to create amazing photographs with all the different types of technology that's out there for you. So be specific and then get a lens that will help you create amazing photographs. Now there are some specialty lenses out there, and a couple of them are the fisheye and the macro lens. Now the fisheye lens is an extremely wide angle lens. In fact, it was originally developed for use in meteorology to study cloud formations, and it was originally called the whole sky lens. And what it does is it lets you capture this 180-degree peripheral shot. It's a really fun lens if you want to capture broad landscapes and then also suggest the curve of the earth. They're incredible. It's also, if you want to do funny pictures of your dog, a fisheye lens is incredible for that too. Now for me, my first lens that I purchased was actually a macro lens because I knew I wanted to do that close-up photography, especially with flowers. So that was my first lens, and I have just shot thousands and thousands of photographs with it, and I just love that lens. So your assignment is to try some different lenses, and you can even just start by looking at what's in your bag right now, and see what you can do, knowing what you now know. See what kind of photos you can get with the lenses that you already have, and then if you feel inspired or you have a birthday coming up or someone wants to buy you something, you can be very specific about the kind of lens you'd like to introduce into your gear. You know, other than the image sensor in your camera, there's really no component that's more important than your lens. And a good lens allows you to get clear, focused shots, and it also gives you the flexibility to creatively frame your subject. So understanding how your lenses work allows you to make some really informed decisions on how to shoot in a variety of situations. And don't forget to share your photos with us. That's how we inspire each other. And the best way to do that is to post them to the Photography Guild page we have on Flickr. And an easy way to get to that is to go to our website and click on the Flickr button, and it will take you right there. And you can post your photos there. For more information on this episode, go to our website and visit the Photography Guild show notes. Also, if you have any questions or ideas, send us an email. Thanks for watching.